Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. And we're back on another stream today, and we are going to be talking about all the latest developments which has been happening at Everton. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Connor Williams. Connor, thanks for jumping on with us for this stream today. How are you doing?
Not too bad, mate. Just got back from Tenerife, so
Oh,
feeling quite
fantastic!
good.
Lucky for some. Very
Yeah,
nice, very nice. Just in time for the international break coming back.
I'm glad I didn't miss many games, mate. I managed to catch the United one in the hotel, so
Ah, there we go. All right, so we're going to just jump in. We're just going to jump on and do a quick stream tonight. A few topics to talk about. Obviously, the main sort of story that's been happening in football this week, unless you've been living under a rock, is of course the big news that Newcastle have been involved in a big Saudi Arabian takeover. And of course, with something of that magnitude happening, you are going to get transfer rumors, and there's going to be all kinds of stories and speculation coming out of it. And it seems that they wasted no time in picking up the story that Rafa Benitez will be interested in making a sensational return to Newcastle. He was manager between 2016 and 2019. He spent 3 years there. I think it's fair to say he was quite well thought of at Newcastle with the Newcastle fans. I suppose the issue there with him was that his hands were tied as far as transfers were concerned, and there was a general consensus that he was happy there. Other than that, so this story's broke. Connor, we'll just jump straight into it. What are your thoughts on this one? Does this make sense? Should we be worried about this, or is this just a case of lazy journalism?
I mean, it makes sense in terms of he was well loved there by Newcastle fans. They were quite upset when we got him. I remember seeing a couple of Newcastle fans quite upset when we got him, and I think they would love him back. So it makes sense in that sort of way of, there's history there, there's a romance there of such, and football loves romance, doesn't it? So in that
Yeah.
sort of way, it makes sense. But I don't think anyone truly knows. The last week, like you said, has been absolutely manic. And I think journalists are just pulling names out the hat. I've seen Ragnick and Lucien Favre now linked with it as well. I think they're a bit like when we were without a manager and we were linked with, every name under the sun, Eddie Howe. I've seen we were linked with Graham Potter. I've seen he's been linked with the Newcastle job. I think they've just done any sort of manager rumours that Everton had in the summer. They've gone, all right, we'll just apply that to Newcastle and see which one sticks the most.
Yeah, you're spot on, isn't it? I mean, we saw this ourselves in the summer, didn't we? It was just a constant merry-go-round of managerial names, and it seems that the first one to come to fruition for Newcastle was Rafa Benitez. Like you mentioned there, there's a lot of sentimentality involved. He was a well thought of manager there. He was very popular with the fans, and I suppose it would be quite an easy link to make, really. So of course we are live on YouTube, so do get your comments in. We want to hear everyone's thoughts on this potential story. Do we think this could happen, or do we think this is ridiculous? I mean, I'm just looking straight away. I'm seeing comments here about Rafa. He does live in the world, doesn't he? So he lives local, so it doesn't really make sense for him to all of a sudden, within a matter of months of being in the Everton job, packing his bags and moving to the northeast. It doesn't really make a lot of sense on that front. And of course, I suppose you can see maybe why the attraction would be there for Rafa. For 1 minute, I'm not suggesting that this is true, and I think Rafa Benitez will go because I think it's ridiculous. I think he's committed to the cause at Everton. I think he's probably settled here. But like I said, it's quite easy to see, isn't it, about this attraction with this influx of money and all these things that are going on at Newcastle at the minute. It can seem like a very tempting proposition, I suppose, doesn't it? So can you see maybe where there would be a temptation with all this money and everything, especially how Rafa was, very limited in his time under Mike Ashley without having a lot of money to spend. And, it's funny because actually he's coming to an Everton side, which he's quite been limited with his transfer funds again. So do you feel like it might be a little bit of a temptation to go with all this influx of money?
I mean, possibly. I can see not just the money. Like if I was him, I'd look at it as well as, and I think he has won over majority, or he's starting to win over the majority of our fan base. He won't. He's not. I don't think he's loved in our fan base still. I don't think he. Anything. I think he's a long way from being loved. Whereas Newcastle fans love him, so he'd have that. But like you said, it's the fact that we are sort of financially a bit stuck at the minute. So he's got to be, on a real low budget now. And even if we weren't, we're talking like we think Farhad Najeri's rich. These are 200 billion more than City are worth. So like this isn't just, there are a couple of million worth more than Farhad Najeri. These are mega rich. And I think a lot of managers will be, licking their lips at the type of money they're going to potentially end up spending. So I could see why, if theoretically could be tempted by that, because that's a really great budget, and you can do some real good, and probably not as much now because of financial fair play, but you could do some real wonderful things with that type of money. I mean, I did see one or two people still questioning, though, Newcastle could still go down this season, and the irony of them being bought out by the
Yeah,
Saudis and
absolutely.
dropping the league.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just a link that I can't really see happening. It just seems like lazy journalism, as we said. And you touched on a point there, didn't you, about how he's still got a while to go yet before he's loved by the Everton fans, where it would probably be like an instant attraction at Newcastle. I mean, let's not forget the state of play when Rafa came into the club. There was a lot to prove. The fan base was so divided. It was as divided as I'd ever known it. So he came in at a really tough time, and let's not take away that we've had a really solid start to this season. I think you can't take that away from him. It's been a great start, and you quite rightly mentioned there that he's probably not loved by Everton fans yet, but I think he's certainly on the right track to being accepted. People are just starting to warm to him now, I think, a little bit. They're maybe not him as a manager, what he's done in the past, but it seems like his tactical nous, his ability to grind out results and get the best out of certain players. I think a lot of people are certainly warming to Rafa Benitez on that sort of front. I saw a comment, one of the earlier ones. Tubbs MD 2BO says, "What if Rafa pulls out a Carlo on us as well?" Well, this is the thing, isn't it? After what happened in the summer with Ancelotti and how a lot of fans were left being hurt, and this whole idea of loyalty, and I think we learned the hard way that there was no loyalty in football that summer. And for Rafa to then do that again within a matter of months, it's almost like the ultimate sin, isn't it? It's like it just wouldn't add up at all. So it's just not in the best interest of Rafa, because how hard he's had to work to win the fans over. I think it just doesn't make sense, does it?
No, but I can see where where that sort of worry comes from. It's sort of been burnt very recently. To put it in like metaphorics of outside football, it'd be like having a partner who cheated on you, and then you'd be
Yeah,
hurt and a bit self-conscious in your next relationship. It's a bit
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. We're still a bit like, and there's no, he doesn't. I don't think he loves Everton, and I think he's happy to be with us, but he doesn't love us. So I think some Everton fans have that worry of, or if Carlo did it and he said such nice things about us and he still went and did it, then it wouldn't be out the realms of possibility that Rafa could do it. I think it's sort of that
yeah,
self-conscious worry, isn't it, that you've been burnt
yeah.
before.
Yeah, there's almost like a guard up, isn't there, in a way, like sort of thing. Like I think when this story started to do the rounds a couple of days ago, well, it wasn't even a couple of days ago, it was literally in the last day about Rafa. I think a lot of people maybe were a bit thingy, like saying like, oh, hang on, maybe this could happen, because a lot of people said when Real Madrid was sniffing around Ancelotti initially, oh no, he'll never go, and then he did, because money talks, doesn't it? So money talks. Cam from the Mighty Blues says, can't see Rafa going anywhere. Thanks for joining the stream, Cam. He can't see Rafa going anywhere near Newcastle. He may have a good relationship there, but they could be facing relegation before they're even allowed to spend. Yeah, Connor touched on that before, didn't you? There's this idea that, okay, Newcastle have got all this money and everything, and it's not an overnight thing where all of a sudden they're going to become, like PSG overnight. Long term, there's the potential for that. Of course, there is with this kind of money we're talking about. But let's not forget the situation Newcastle are in at present. They're in, I don't think they've won a game yet. They're down there, and it's looking quite bleak. So there's going to have to be some turnaround for them to really not be in some kind of trouble this season. So yeah, just looking at some more comments. Do get your comments in. We are going to be discussing a number of topics today. Abigail says Rafa has ruled out any possibility of a move. It's lazy journalism. We have money, just hamstrung by FFP. Newcastle could still come unstuck with FFP. Well, this is it, isn't it? We've just talked about this Rafa thing, and it's come out today. There seems to be a lot of talk today that Rafa has come out and said that he is happy at Everton. He has no desires to jump ship, and I think he probably understands. I'm very careful about how I use the term moral obligation, because there's not a lot of that in football, but it's quite positive, isn't it? If these quotes are true, that Rafa is happy here, and do you think that'll win him some more brownie points with the fans?
I'm going to be slightly cynical here. I think because of the previous man and the comments he
Yeah,
came up
yeah,
with, I think saying is a little bit saying it is no longer going to get a pass. I don't
Yeah.
personally think he'll leave. Just putting it out there before people start, to wonder if I do. I don't think he will, but for some fans, just saying it won't be enough. It'll be more, I'll believe it when it happens, just because the last man really did make it sound like he loved Everton. Ancelotti made it sound like he was going to be with us for the entire rebuild, Bramley Moore, and then at a soon whiff of money, he was like, right, I'm off, lads. So
Yeah.
I can see it. The cynic in me thinks that, but I personally don't think he'll leave. Like you said, he's
Yeah.
lived on the Wirral. He's comfortable. I don't think he will, but I think he needs until they get a new man, or he officially turns it down and it's been offered and turns it down. I think people will still be a little bit hesitant to believe words.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree. Rafa, if he was to do this and leave Everton after what, how long's it been? Like 4 months, then it would be. It could only be Everton. You'd like to use that phrase that it could happen
Yeah,
to, but it would be up there with what But you just like you said there, the cynic in you. With the things we've seen down the years, you just would not put it past anyone, would you? Just getting into a few more comments. James says, obviously we all know his ties to Merseyside. He loves it here. And I know money talks, but let's be honest, we have a better prospects than Newcastle, especially short term, and surely he sees that. Yeah, I think an important part of that is you've mentioned short term there, which I completely agree with. I think, overnight Newcastle aren't going to become this big European powerhouse within a matter of months. It's gonna take years to turn over that sort of squad. So it's not going to be instant success by any means. And of course, he lives on Merseyside, doesn't he? He's quite happy here. And and so far, it's not been a bad of a start, of course, which leads me into the next point. When Koeman says, what would you rate Rafa out of 10 so far? James and Teddy rated him 8 out of 10. Connor, I'll let you take this one. What do you think? If we're going to rate Rafa's start?
I think James and Terry have got that on the nail there. Eight's fair. The point against United, I came on and said on the channel before I went away that I'd be happy with a point at Old Trafford, and we could have stole it. We could have stole a win there. I'd say 8 is the highest though because of the disappointment in the cup, and that's why I'd say 8. And obviously Villa, we came a little bit unstuck, but I mean, if you can stop United, then maybe that was just an off day. But I think he's done very well for his start. I was really worried we were going to, struggle this season. I still think we'll finish 10th or 12th, but so far I can't knock him. I can't find a negative. The biggest one for me, which is why I say an 8, is he's not afraid to change things. And he really wants to shift this mentality of once we go a goal down, the head's dropping. Oh, that's it. We might as well walk off now because we're not going to win the game, which we saw a lot last season. He's really trying to shift that mentality away from the players and the fans. How many times last season did we see go a goal down and go, right, well, that's it. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it is going on.
I'd go along with that. I think 8's a very, very reasonable rating to give Rafa. You mentioned there the disappointments of the cup and the manner of the Aston Villa defeat. Yeah, I think 8's fair enough. I think it's important to remember as well the injuries that we've been dealing with and how the sort of results and performances he's been grinding out of teams without key players such as Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, Seamus Coleman. Going into that Manchester United game, I think a lot of people might have had us down as lambs to the slaughter in a way, looking at the quality of their bench and the quality of our bench. I don't need to go on about that, but yeah, I think the fact that we beat Norwich the week before, we almost covered our backs a little bit because I always feel like if you win the games that's something we struggled to do last season. If you win the games which on paper you're expected to win at home, then it makes up for these bigger games, if you like, if you're going to get turned over by players of a much higher quality. And the fact how we comfortably beat Norwich in that second half, and then against Manchester United, as mad as it sounds, we came away disappointed with just the point. It's almost like we were happy to be disappointed not to win, if that makes sense, because going into the game, of course, we would have been delighted with a point, and to feel like we really could have snatched it at the end. And the players on the pitch as well is important. The players that Man United were bringing on and what we had, what wasn't available for us, the way we counter-attacked and the way we defended and hung in there was great. And that was probably up there with one of the performances of the season so far, from resilience that we showed and just the strength that we seem to have on the counter as well. And we mentioned just going on Rafa as well. He seems to be getting even more out of players like Abdoulaye Doucouré, in a more advanced role as well. So I think it's important to give credit to Benitez on that front too. Moving on to some more comments. Semi-Charmed Life 311 says Rafa's not had it easy with being a former Reds boss and the lack of money to spend and the injuries, but he's done well to deal with it. Yeah, again, it just echoes what we've been saying, kind of, doesn't it? How, his we mentioned how his hands were tied at Newcastle in terms of transfer funds, but he has had a bit of a difficult start to life at Everton, not with performances on the pitch, like things out of his control, such as transfers, such as injuries. So it's really important to not forget that element of Rafa's start as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that on its own goes without saying. Like, there's no secret that I actually, before we got Rafa, was a big fan of Graham Potter. I still am. I know some people refer to it as a hipsters club, Brighton, and him as a hipsters man. I think he's really good and talented, and will show it eventually in his career. But looking back now, I'm quite glad we didn't get him. In hindsight, with the luck we've had, I think we probably have the best manager for the just pure unluckiness of injuries. I don't think Potter would have coped with missing, only having, two fullbacks, missing half, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, having James Rodriguez, maybe not playing, maybe playing, sort of fiasco. I think Benitez handled it really well. And I
Yeah.
don't think there's better pound for pound managers that would get the best out of such a, restricted squad. Because it's not, we haven't been playing with our best 11 for the last 3-4 games now. And I think you'd be hard fetched to get a manager that could cope with that. And that's where his experience comes in, a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely as well. That it's I think going into, if someone told you that we'd have the points that we had, facing who we faced, without Seamus Coleman, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, arguably our main goal threat, and the punch return we have, sitting comfortably in fifth place and going into some winnable games. I don't want to say winnable games, because we all know how that turns out when we say them. But some games where we're more than capable of getting a result from. Two home games coming up against West Ham and Watford. If we can get another 6 points out of that heading into November, then you've really got to take your hat off to Rafa. And I think if we can get 6 points from our next two home games, I think a lot of fans will truly be won over. Then I think, not so much loving Rafa, like be it this big Everton god, but of course not. But I think he will have won the fans over massively. Just a bit of injury news I just want to touch on now. Obviously, the international break in a sort of way was quite, as much as we disliked them, it was sort of welcome, the timing, because we could get players back like Coleman, Calvert-Lewin. Fingers crossed, Richarlison's not too far away either. But obviously the players that did go, of course, we have had a bit of negative news this week with regards to Luca Dean. There's been a couple of niggles with him early on in the season. Hopefully it's not too big of a problem, but he has returned to Finch Farm, and wasn't part of the French setup for their game. So how much of a blow is that going to be if it comes out that Luke Dean's not going to be available? Because it seems to be a case of like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, doesn't it?
Massive, because it means we're playing someone who's not left-footed. Either that or Fabian Delph, but more than likely it's going to be Godfrey or John Joe Kenny we're going to play there. And it's someone who's not naturally left-footed. So you take away that running down the flank left cross into, like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who'll be back. You take away that delivery, and it's just awkward. I remember this isn't the first time. I remember watching John Joe Kenny once at left back for us, and it was one of the more painful things I've seen, because you can just read every time he's not a left-footed player. He's going to try and cut inside and use his right foot. And once you realise that, and he's not the likes of, I hate to say the name, but he's not the likes of Mo Salah, who is going to cut on his stronger foot, but somehow manages to get away with it every time he does it. It's John Joe Kenny. He's incredibly obvious when he does it. And to an extent, as much as I love Ben Godfrey, he's going to be caught out as well, trying to switch onto his stronger foot. I don't think they have the magic or the deceit that wingers manage to have to do it. So it's going to be a big blow. Otherwise, we're going to play Fabian Delph there, and I don't think he's got the legs to be going up and down the pitch.
Yeah, some good points made in the comments here as well. Semi Charm says loaning out Nkunku was mad. I completely agree with that. I think in situations like this, I feel like it would have been good for him to get some first team action. So it does seem like a bit of a strange decision that to loan Nkunku out. And again, Wormy Spoons just said here, it needs addressing the fullback issue in January. Stop moving Godfrey all about the place. Yeah, you're spot on, Wormy. You couldn't have put it better myself. We've seen Ben Godfrey get moved about the back line, and it seems when he's a fantastic player, don't get me wrong, but when he seems to be playing in the fullback positions, his positional play doesn't seem to be as on point as it should be. And Ben Godfrey's a centre back, so we're really short in the fullback positions, of course. I mean, we knew this in the summer, didn't we? But it's one of them, and we couldn't really move forward. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Ben Godfrey? Just quick about how he's been moved around to different positions this season.
I really like him. I think he works hard, which is one of the. I always think as long as you work hard, Everton fans will adhere, will love you. Whether you're of good quality like him, or Alan works hard, the Corey works hard, and they're of a better quality, or you're someone like Strakalarzi or like Umar Nias, who, let's be honest, aren't
Yeah,
brilliant
yeah,
footballers technically, but they work their socks off, and fans took to that. And as
yeah,
long
yeah,
as you work hard, that as a basic, you will be liked. And he's very raw, and I like the fact that every game you do a big Godfrey slide tackle that the fans like. I do worry that because he's being shifted around that often, it sort of not damages his development, but I'd like to see him sort of take the weaknesses out of his game as he plays. But if he's being switched around and has to do every role in that back four, he's not going to have time to sort of point out his weaknesses and work on them.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Ben Godfrey, Semi Charms just said there, it's doing a disservice playing him out of position. I'd agree with that. I think, particularly in the Aston Villa game, I thought his positional play was really poor to, give Leon Bailey that sort of time and space for their third. But listen, we know how short we are in that position, and it's just unfortunate that the injuries have occurred in those positions with Seamus Coleman and Luca Dean. Just staying on the defensive front, Yerry Mina has been very impressive this season. He's arguably been the best player at the defence. He's had his own injury issues, really, hasn't he? And when he's not been in the squad, that his absence is sort of felt, isn't it? So just how impressed have you been with Yerry Mina's performances this season?
Really impressed. I really like him, not just for the fact that he's a big brute of a player, but I also think he's very funny. He looks like a good character to have at Finch Farm. He's always laughing. I thought giving his shirt to Richarlison the other day was quite funny. And I
Yeah,
think he gets the mental side of football. He's always trying to get in the head of the opponent. We saw it with Bamford. He
yeah,
really does rile them up to the extent that he really puts them off the game. And especially with strikers like Bamford who aren't physical threats either. So he's getting bullied and he's getting mentally bullied. It will throw him off. But I can't remember who it was, but someone put it on Twitter that he's sort of like mental because you assume he's slow just because of
yeah,
how gangly he is, but he's not that slow. Like people make it out like, he can't run, but he can run. And like you watch him, and I think it is because he's so gangly and, lanky, you watch him and you go, I don't know how he's this good because he looks uncomfortable sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's mental, but I really like him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's. I feel like this season he's definitely been our best centre back, hasn't he? And you touched on some good points there about how he possesses a lot of qualities, doesn't he? That us as Evertonians love to see. He wears his heart on his sleeve. We saw against the Leeds United game earlier in the season, this sort of exchange with Patrick Bamford, and even the sort of the aggro that was going on at Old Trafford, he was straight in the mix with that as well. He sticks up for his teammates, as you mentioned there. He has a good relationship with people like Richarlison, what you just said. And the fans really take to that. The fans of Everton Football Club have always took to players like that. There's a long list of players like that who have always graced Goodison Park. And Yerry Mina, when fit, fantastic player, and he has to be one of the first names on the team sheet for me. But that is the issue, isn't it? It is keeping him fit, and we know he has gone away on international duty with Colombia. So fingers crossed. Doesn't seem to be any issues as of yet. But how much of a how much of a problem is it with Yerry Mina's injury record, if you like? Because when he plays and he's on form, he's a fantastic player. But it is just that question of fitness, isn't it, that which just lets him down sometimes.
Yeah, and I can't quite put my finger on why it is, because as everyone knows in this chat, we've had a lot of managers, and this
Yeah,
seems
yeah,
to be a thing. Regardless of who the manager is, but they always seem to be some sort of like sometimes it's his thigh, and then sometimes it's his calf. They don't always seem to be the one reoccurring injury. It seems to be little different things. I'm hoping, and I say this because I can't remember who wrote the article, but I saw an article and I saw people saying about how good Paco de Miguel is, the fitness coach, and how
yeah, yeah,
Benitez likes him and how he keeps, players fit. And then we got all those injuries and people were sort of saying how ironic it is. But his sort of, status is that he keeps players fit. He's a good fitness coach. I'm hoping Benitez and his team will sort of manage to sort of debunk this Yerry Mina injury problem that he has.
Yeah, like I said, it seems to be when he gets on a roll and he gets in good form and he's just starting to really kick on and look like a real consistent performer in the team, it seems like that's when the injuries kick in. Like right when he's sort of on the top of his game and we're really loving his performances and he's putting in a shift and he just looks like a rock at the back. That's when the injuries seem to kick in. And that's where it's probably the most disappointing thing. Yeah, I mean, his contract expires at the end of June. June 2020. Well, not this June, of course. We'd be up in arms if that was the case. In June 2023, his contract expires. Is it a no-brainer that he warrants a new contract for you? And will he have a lot of potential admirers? Should his contract run down a little bit more? Obviously, it's not a matter of urgency. It's not this coming summer, but it's the summer after that. Do you feel like this will be on Everton's agenda in the not too distant future to get Mina tied down to another contract?
I hope so. There was rumours in January that Benitez wanted a new centre back because he doesn't know his natural centre. I think Semi Chard's put it here that Godfrey and Mina would be the one that I think everyone would like.
Mm,
And I think the club are looking for more centre backs. But for me, those two are ones that you definitely keep, and you maybe look to shift the other two out, if anyone. Whether that is the case, because it's Everton, and you never can guarantee that sense and sensibility prevails. But I'd hope you
yeah,
do them two, and you get rid of maybe Holgate because I don't think he's
yeah,
developed the way we'd liked him to.
yeah. I'd go along with that. I feel like Yerry Mina has to be top of the priority list. He's definitely him and Godfrey are the two. I think it's plain to see going forward they are the pairing that everyone feels are the most effective. Putting the best performances. So going forward, when fit, them two of course have to be on the team sheet. And you mentioned Mason Holgate there. If we want to bring in a bit more depth, and we all know the situation we're in at the minute, where we probably have to start thinking about moving on some players more than we previously would. I think it's fair to say that Mason Holgate's definitely on that list. And you've got Michael Keane there as well. I think Michael Keane, he's always there. He picks up a few injuries, and he's good to have around, isn't he? So Michael Keane, I wouldn't, if it's between him and Holgate to get rid of, I feel like Holgate has to be the one with the question marks for me. Just moving on, I just want to talk a little bit about Tom Davies. Now, in the wake of the Manchester United game, a lot was made about that moment, which we all know what we're talking about. Like, does he shoot, take that on himself? Do he win the game? Was he wrong? Was he wrong to pass? Was he right to pass? Um, we know how quick the Premier League is, and he's got to make these decisions in a split second. Um, I've heard a lot of people talk, and myself included, about maybe he didn't take the shot on because it's a confidence thing. What's your take on that whole Tom Davies situation that was from last week? But where do you stand on it?
If Mina's not offside, I think, and then like I said, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But if Mina's not
Yeah,
offside, we're all talking about how great of a decision it was in that moment. I think Owen might have defended him, saying, it's tough to make it. And if, he is onside, that's a really great pass. I would have loved to see him put his foot through it. But I do think it's a confidence thing. How many times
yeah,
does he get chances at goal? He's not known for his goal scoring, stature. And I think that probably was, he was like, oof. And I think he's just one of those players. I thought Bernard was similar when we had Bernard, who will look for the pass
yeah,
before going for the goal himself. And I think in that moment, it's unlucky that Mina's offside because it's a really good ball. If he isn't, it's one of them. Bernard was very similar for me. And ironically, the moment I think about is it's a couple of games against United where I thought if you just shoot,
yeah.
but I think he's one of those players that will look for a pass before going for goal himself.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I mean, if it's Richarlison, I would back him to score that 9 times out of 10. Obviously it wasn't Richarlison, it was Tom Davies. So you know, the thing is, he's an Evertonian. He wants that to go in as much as anyone else, and he probably thought that time that there's more chance of this happening if he passes the ball and he catches De Gea off guard. But it's football. It's so quick. He has to make these decisions, so quick. And people can say, you know, if that passes just a little earlier, or you can go on and on. And Semi Chan says he's damned if he did, damned if he didn't, and he's spot on really. If he takes
Yeah,
the shot and misses it, everyone's saying, "Oh, why didn't he pass?" And then obviously people are making an argument that he should have took the shot on himself. But it is a confidence thing as well. I think a lot of it is. So what? Where do you stand on Tom Davies? Just while we're on the subject, there's been talk about Crystal Palace in for him. He's not really started many games this season. Um, what do you think the score is with Tom at the minute? Because we made a point there about confidence, and his is maybe the best solution in the long term for him at Everton. Do you still see a future for him at Everton if he can work well, or do you feel like maybe it might get to a stage where he might be looked to be moved on to a team like Palace? What do you think?
Um, I I really like him. I think he's and I'm going to say this now. People are going to go, it's not a reason to keep him at the club. I think he's a lovely person. Off the
Yeah,
pitch, you see a lot of what he does, and he's a lovely fella. And he seems to be when he does, the interviews and on the YouTube channel that they have, he seems to be a nice character, a bit
yeah,
funny. And like you said, he's an Everton fan, so he is living his dream right now. He's probably on
yeah,
cloud nine that he gets to play for the club he loves. I think he's a little bit. I don't want to say. I think he's sort of been affected by the swapping and changing managers every 2 minutes that we've had, because he's, when we first came and I'm going to say burst on the scene because the goal against City was fantastic.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you can only go down from there. Scoring in that game, you could all, you're only
yeah,
going to go down from then on. But everyone thought, he's going to be a box to box, and then under Ancelotti, he was more of a deep line in front of the back four. And now with Benitez, we don't see him as much, so it's a bit hard to say what his role will be under Benitez. But I think he sort of is being asked different roles each year, and I think that might have a slight effect on him. So, like, from a personal point of view, I'd hope he'd stay, but he's not going to get games at Everton. Then career-wise for himself, maybe he'd be better off at a team where he'll get games. But he's living his dream right now, so I feel like it's for him to leave. It would, be quite devastating for him on a personal level.
yeah. I agree. I think it's worth mentioning as well. I think the form of Allen and Decore doesn't help either, because at the minute they've made such a great start to the season, and I think they're so integral and they're so effective in the way that we seem to be playing this season. I think one of the big plus sides of this season is that we seem to have a bit of an identity again. We seem to be really an effective counter-attacking team, and players like Decore playing more advanced, and Alan dictating that midfield. It's it's difficult for Tom Davis to maybe come in and have that effect, because, as you quite rightly mentioned, then he's been at the club for a long time, and he has seen a lot of chopping and changing with the managers. I think was he here when Martinez was here? Towards the end of Martinez, or did Tom Davis make his debut on the game where David Unsworth was in charge with Joe Royal? I feel like
Possibly,
he
I
might have
think he
done.
might have
Yeah,
just
just
stuck the
towards the end of
Martinez.
Martinez, but he's seen a lot of managers. He's seen a lot of managers, and as you said, it's sort of difficult when you're not a big star name to maybe make a name for yourself. So it's hard, isn't it? Because he gets along with everyone. He seems to be very good friends with the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and it's hard, isn't it? Because it's almost like I associate, in terms of development at the club, Calvert-Lewin, Davis, and Holgate is quite very similar journeys when they started their journeys. Now it's quite obvious that they're all three completely different players. I understand that, but you look at how Calvert Lewin's made them steps up and to be a regular in the first team, and the jury's still out with Davis and Holgate, isn't it? So, like, I'd like it to happen for him. But if we're sat here having the same conversation in 12 to 18 months, if he's still here, then maybe you'd start to maybe have to ask questions. But just on that Man United moment, I've seen a lot of people say that, you know, it's one of them, isn't it? Andrew says Tom should have took another touch, and then he could have shot or cut it back to me. And we could sit here all night, couldn't we, and say, could have done this, should have done that. But at the end of the day, it's been and gone. There was that when we thought we'd won it, it was amazing. It was fantastic, wasn't it? But it wasn't meant to be, and we get a point out the game. But yeah, that's that. It is what it is. Just before we start wrapping things up, I just want to touch on the West Ham game quite quick. Obviously, we come into this game on the back of the draw at Old Trafford, a result which was welcomed by many, many people. Um, so tough game, really tough game. Of course, David Moyes coming back to Goodison Park. Last time out, it was a really disappointing display, wasn't it? I think it was on New Year's Day or the 2nd of January, something like that. It was a real,
Yeah.
just went along with all those poor performances at home last year. So yeah, big game back from the international break. We want to continue this momentum. If we win this game, it's huge for us. But of course, it's going to be tough, isn't it, Connor?
Yeah, I think obviously I remember the Burnley game. I said it'd be interesting because of the some similarities in the style. And David Moyes' West Ham are again similar in the way that, especially how he's got them playing now. It's because he had quite, he was at West Ham and he was sacked, and now he's rejuvenated. He's back again. He's the Moyes of Everton era. I see a lot of people comparing him to when he was manager of us and the way his team plays. They're a very good team. Again, they're quick on the counter attack as well. He'll look to get his wingers in behind Antonio. He'll look for him to bully, cause a bit of trouble. But also Antonio's pace as well. That he's a hard striker, isn't he? Because he's big, he's powerful, but he's also fast.
Yeah.
You look at Rondon, he's big and powerful, but he's not the most mobile player I've ever seen. But Antonio's
Not quite, no.
Yeah, and like not being mobile is probably the nicest way to describe him. But
Yeah, he plays like he's playing in jeans.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Or like Timberland boots or something.
Yeah. Oh.
But Antonio is he's got that pace as well that makes him so dangerous. He could shrug defenders off, which is why I'm hoping we'll have Mina and Godfrey, because I think he might shove Holgate off the ball. I don't think Holgate's got the power for him, but West Ham are certainly set up really well, and they'll look to catch us if we let our guard down.
Yeah, powerful side, difficult to beat. Dangerous players, as you quite rightly mentioned there. You look at Antonio, of course, Jared Bowen, I know he scored the last game, so he'll be looking to kick on a little bit more now. They had a disappointing result last time out against Brentford. I think Brentford, played really well so far this season. Yeah, tough game. David Moyes is always going to want to do one over on us. He's delighted with that win last year. But like I said, it's at home. Now that we're unbeaten at home, we've won all our home games so far this season, which is, much more welcome than the dross we had to watch from our own homes last season. So if we can win this game, this puts us in a really good position, doesn't it, going forward? And then we go into a Watford game, which there's always the danger there that, they get that sort of like boost you get when a new manager comes in with Ranieri. So that's got to be mindful. But yeah, so just thinking a little bit more ahead, we've got 2 home games coming up. The international breaks will be over soon. If we win these 2 games, where do you? It's probably a bit too early to start talking about this, but where do you think we can start thinking about maybe aiming for this season?
I mean, I said before, so I'm going to have to properly stick with it now. Otherwise, but I said 10th to 12th, and I still think just because of how long the season is, and we've still got the December period where it'll get quite, the December period is probably the worst part of the Premier League.
Yeah, it's relentless. Yeah.
And I'm going to still say I don't think 10th would be a disaster for us. Don't get me wrong. We had this last year where we started well and we were hoping for, better. And it sort of fell away. I don't think it'd be awful for your first season. I'm going to stick with 10th, but anything above that would just means I'm going to be very happy. If I set it for 10th, 12th, anything above it, I'm going to be absolutely ecstatic for.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite easy to forget how skeptical everyone was going into this season. I think I was actually on the stream with you not long before we played our first game against Southampton. I think I remember you saying that actually, and because there wasn't a lot of expectations going into the season due to everything that was going on. So I think a lot of people's predictions were around the 10th to 12th sort of mark. But because of the start that we've had, obviously last season everyone was jubilant. People had us down to win the league. We were top of the iTunes charts and all the rest of it. But I think this time around, knowing how drastic the fall off was last season, I feel like a lot of people are still mindful of that. But it's encouraging with the manager that we've got at the minute. He seems to know how to get results, and with backs against the walls as well. With key players missing, he still seems to know how to get points. And going into this West Ham game, if we can get key men back like Calvert-Lewin and Coleman, it's only going to be a good thing for us, and give us some more options on the bench as well. Because it was quite threadbare as it's been for quite a while now. We're starting to get quite accustomed to seeing 2 goalkeepers on the bench. Semi Charm says I said 8th to 10th myself. Yeah, I think a lot of people are still quite grounded, which is quite encouraging to see as well. Do you know what I mean? People aren't getting too carried away. People are respecting Rafa, what he's done, the start we've had, but a lot of people are quite grounded, which I think is good to see, because we don't want to be in a sort of position where we were last season, which was terrible. Make sure to drop the stream a like if you can. Only takes a second, just get us up before we start finishing. We've got a Newcastle fan in the comments here now. Must be ecstatic at the moment. But yeah, going forward, West Ham, hopefully we can get 3 points there and we can move on and keep on. We keep just take it game by game, don't we, Connor? That's all we can do at the minute. Just take it game by game, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that would probably be the best sort of mentality to have as well. Just because, and like to be fair, my 10th to 12th isn't so much the manager anymore. It's more, I think we'll get stuck up by the injuries that we've the lack of depth. But if we take every game as it comes, try not to get ahead of ourselves as much as it was, a really great time when we were top of the iTunes charts and we're going to win the league. I think we've sort of learned, it only takes the Christmas period for your form to dip.
Yeah.
But West Ham, I think, will be our tougher one. But Watford, I mean, I've been away, so I don't fully know, but I'm going to go out and say they still haven't replaced the manager yet.
Oh, yeah, Claudio Ranieri. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he'll, hopefully he'll play, the first game, get his
against Liverpool. Hopefully he has his graceful period when he comes in against Liverpool.
Yeah. Every manager when they come in wins their first game, sort of written in the stars, all the rules of football.
12:30 kickoff, never back the early kickoff, as they say.
Exactly. All the football fate and tropes all say that it might go his way. And by the time he comes to us, we'll have already been like the honeymoon period will have rubbed off. But Watford, I can see as a winnable game, even with Ranieri. I still see that as a winnable game.
Yeah, you'd like to think so at home, at Goodison, you'd like to think so. But of course, this season, we're all very grounded. We all have reasonable expectations this season. Just quickly before we finish, now Erman Koeman's been asking, what are our thoughts on the Aaron Ramsey rumours? Connor, Aaron Ramsey, thoughts?
Not a fan. I said it about a couple of players I think it might have been Aaron Ramsey in the sort of, rumours one I do. He is the exact sort of prototype that we should start avoiding.
Yeah,
it's a player.
The sort of signing that stung us in years gone by. Yeah,
29 to 30 would come on a big contract because he's just come from Juventus on a good whack. He'd probably be given a 3-year deal. First year in, we'd be like, oh, he's not too bad. In the second year, his legs or ambition would have gone, and we've been like, well, we're stuck with him now. I really would like us to start buying 29, 30-year-olds and start looking at younger players, Damari Grays, sort of players like that, 25, something approved, maybe even, a bit younger in some aspects, that sort of got something to prove, got the hunger, isn't going to rock up and think I'll take this nice paycheck before I go somewhere else, but looks at us and goes, this is a team where I can really, prove my doubters wrong, stamp myself into football type of player.
Yeah, this is it, and not only that as well. I think that I know we always need squad depth. You can never have enough good players, and if you can get some good quality, players who can come on just purely for squad depth and be in and around the first team, it's going to be. I feel like Alan and Decore at the minute that they're just playing fantastic football right now, and they're so integral to the way we play, as I mentioned before. So it'll take a lot to get them to out the team at the minute because they're just the way they're playing for us at the minute. It's just outstanding the way we're playing as well. It's just. Just thoughts on Alan Decore, dead quick before we wrap things up. How impressed have you been with them two?
Really, really impressed. I mean, I liked Alan a lot, and I've done for quite a while because he's quite aggressive. I'm trying not to swear, but he's the house type player.
100%. Yeah, he's a snide. Yeah.
So he's quite. I really have liked him for a while, and he's a bit like a pit bull because he's quite small, but he's just throws himself about. As for Decore. A bit opposite in the fact that he's a physical presence. He's a bit taller, but what a technical player he is. The balls he sees, some of his assists he's got, some of the goals he's got. He's just a fantastic player. And I will touch just on the last thing on Ramsey. He's not anywhere near similar to what those two are. So even if we did get him, he would not be a like for like. If we're going to get him, we should look for a like for like in terms of their style of play because he's not an Allen and he's certainly not a Decore. So
yeah, that's it. He just flourishing, isn't he, in that advanced role, Abdoulaye Decore there, and they just seem to be complementing each other so well this season. And I go back to saying it, the way that we are playing this season, it just seems to fit perfectly, doesn't it? And long may it continue. Okay, so I think we're going to leave the stream there. Thank you everyone for just quickly there. There's a comment there that says, do you think DCL will leave for Arsenal come January? not a chance. Connor, not a chance of that happening. There's no way he'd downgrade himself to go to Arsenal. There's a lot more going from Everton than there's Arsenal right now, 100%.
I have an Arsenal a friend who's an Arsenal fan, and he messaged me and he was like, "Well, why wouldn't he?" And I'm like, "Because you don't have Europe. You might have won. Arteta's won Manager of the Month, but like that's Manager of the Month. We've seen, the curse of that. They could just completely go down now. He's happy at the club. I'd get it if they were one of the top 4, or the big top 3. I'd get it, but for Arsenal, I'd be quite offended. And I don't think he'd suit Arteta's style either. He needs the ball in his air. At the feet, we all sort of say isn't his strongest one-on-ones. He's better in the air, and Arteta's not going to say, whip balls into him.
I don't think Calvert-Lewin will go anytime soon. And if it does come to a point where he does, I certainly don't think it will be to Arsenal. But yeah, thank you very much for joining the stream. Big thanks to Connor for coming on and helping us out tonight. Really appreciated having a nice chat about everything that's going on at Everton at the minute. Thanks to everyone who tuned in, dropping us a like. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And we shall see you next time on the Toffee Blues. All the best, everyone. Thank you very much. Take care.